Come on in, bestie. Welcome to StoryPod, where we do the doing of story development together. Brought to you by Creative BFF. All right, friends. Hello. Listen, I'm coming in with that kind of a start because I just spent a bunch of time trying to figure out how to do something technologically on Miss OBS, but she just was not cooperating. So we're just going to move on. Hello and welcome. No cold open again today. My name is Ashley. I am your creative BFF. Okay. This podcast is called the StoryPod podcast, which you've already heard by now. And what we like to do here is practice storytelling in little snippets in various ways. I like to liken it. I enjoy likening it to going to a gym, putting in some reps, and some sets, building the muscles necessary so that when we are ready to perform for our own stories, our own worlds, our own characters, the muscles have already been primed. There's already strength in the background ready to go. You know what I'm saying? So today, I got all discombobulated for a second because of trying to figure out tech stuff is ugh. Today is going to be a mishmash of petty peeve type stuff, kind of light, nothing super extreme. In my last video, I cut this out, but I had also intended in my last video to chat briefly about my thoughts about a game that I'm playing right now, Nier Automata. I literally looked up how to say it and I completely forgot. Nier Automata, I think is how it is. And my thoughts about just one particular issue that I have with the story. And then I want to look at something that's also another thing that's kind of like a little petty peeve that I saw somebody else on TikTok mention. And then I also got a post that kind of references it on Instagram. So I wanted to chat about that a little bit as well, if I remember to do it. So I'm going to try to go through pretty quickly both of these two things. My little brother is moving to Arizona tomorrow. So today we're supposed to be hanging out. So I just want to spend a little time with you guys and then go spend hopefully some time with my little brother and my sister who's coming in to help him move. So anyway, you didn't ask for all that, but I gave it to you anyway. Okay. It's Sunday as of recording. And that's just kind of how I feel. So Nier Automata. So I played the first one. Is it maybe chronologically the first one, Nier Replicant, probably a couple of years ago now, which is crazy to say because I feel like I played it last year. Maybe I finished it last year, but I believe that I started it probably in 2024. And I had issues with the story kind of immediately, but issues notwithstanding, that is one of the few games in recent history that I have finished that was longer than a couple of hours or longer than 10 hours, I would say. And it kind of became a little bit of a comfort game for me, even though I was having issues with the story. And the main issue that I had, which I also noticed because I recently started playing Nier Automata. Correct me if I'm saying this incorrectly. And I noticed pretty much the same issue so far. Before I get into this issue, I want to say that overall I enjoy the gameplay itself. The look of it is nice. It's a Square Enix, right? A Square Enix game series. And overall I liked it. I felt like Nier Replicant was it felt a little bit empty. The world felt a little empty to me, but I do come from things like World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy games and other RPGs that maybe have a lot of NPCs and a lot of content and quests and things that you can do, and a lot of locations that you can go to. And Nier Replicant and maybe Nier Automata. I'm not far enough along in the game to know for sure, but Nier Replicant definitely kind of circled around the same locations, just a few, not very many people, and whatever. That's not my problem. Okay, my problem was that it felt like they did two things in the story. One, it felt like they were trying to force an emotional response out of the audience too early, and then number two, it felt like the characters were having emotional responses to situations that happened that did not feel earned. And now for Nier Replicant, I can't remember exactly what I remember one instance for sure, but I do remember feeling like within maybe the first hour or two of the game, maybe within the first 5 hours to be safe, I felt like there was something that happened that felt like it would be better placed later in the game after we've had a chance to really get connected to the characters and to care about the characters. And that was one big thing that I lacked throughout pretty much the whole game. I feel like I did not connect emotionally. I didn't really care too much about what happened to most of the characters. The only character that I kind of cared about was I cannot remember his name, but the little boy who turned into this like almost Jack from Jack in the Box looking head creature floating around. And I felt like because we got a little bit of his backstory, and we saw why he transformed into this thing that he transformed into. Sorry if I'm giving you spoilers. Not really. I'm kind of being vague. But so let me tell you. So generally, okay, the backstory of this boy, little boy, who became one of the characters that were in your party. The sister of the main character, who is kind of the reason that the main character is doing everything in this game, began to correspond with someone and they became friends. And so the sister asks the main character to go help her friend. He does so. It's kind of like a haunted mansion type of vibe. And then I can't remember exactly how it played out, but eventually helping this little boy and whatever they go through, he kind of is transformed into some sort of monster type creature, because his sister was that. They were trying to help. I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly what happened. It was 2 years ago, and I did not bother to go back and look at the story. Please forgive me. I'm sure that's annoying, but we are here now, and we must press on. But because I got to see this process, and I got to understand kind of like his emotional state and the situation with his sister, I think that he had forgotten some things, and we were just learning about this experiment that he was part of and things like that. So it was kind of an interesting little side story, and because of that was the character that I came the closest to caring anything about. And so when something happened to him, and when he eventually would sacrifice himself, I cared. I felt it. I was like, oh, little Bubba. But for the rest of the characters, I didn't care. And so here's another example of me not caring about a character as the audience, but also the game not having earned the responses of the characters to what happened. So there's this other character, this woman who joins the team, and there's always this kind of playful banter back. Well, not playful banter. She's kind of like, I guess she would be like a tsundere, maybe like a hard as nails, heart of gold type of character, I guess. And we got very little information. I mean, the way we met her is kind of sad, and we kind of understand that she has some challenges that she's trying to work through on her own, and she has her journey that she goes through. But I don't necessarily feel a connection that happens between, for example, her and the main character. But when she ultimately sacrifices herself, the main character is, or all the characters are having this response that feels like we've gotten a lot of relational development happening between these characters. We're seeing their little fireside chats, and we're kind of let more into her struggles and things. I mean, we know a little bit, we know some, she's not an unknown. It's not that we don't know anything about her backstory, but it's just like, we're not, to me, now this is my opinion, I don't feel like we had time to really connect, and that the characters didn't have time to connect. Because, for example, whenever the main character would go into one of the few cities, the few locations in the game, she would basically stay outside, if I'm remembering correctly, because she wasn't really welcome and things like that. So we don't really get a whole lot of time, conversation and relational building between these characters. We're told that when she's camping outside, whenever we're doing whatever we're doing in the city or whatever, the little boy that I mentioned, that other character that I actually cared about, he would stay outside with her, and probably because he wasn't super welcome either, but we don't get to see any of their conversations. We don't get to see any of their relational development because it's not connected to the main character. But the main character has this big emotional reaction to when she sacrifices herself, which is like, okay, I'll allow it to slide or whatever, because it is a thing that she's doing. She is sacrificing herself and whatever. But it's like, you're alluding, as the writers of the game, you're alluding to more relational development between these characters than we got to see. And so we can't participate in the emotional reaction that the main character is having to this sacrifice that she makes. And it was kind of like, so the emotional parts pretty much throughout the game, every time that there was an emotional situation happening where I'm supposed to feel something about what's happening to these characters, with the exception of what I mentioned about when the little boy creature character sacrifices himself towards the end, I just could not participate in those emotions, which to a certain extent is kind of, maybe that's why it became like a comfort game to me. Like, it just like a little comforting game that I would play after work, because I was in a game cycle at that time, and it didn't require really any emotional investment from me. So that's probably why it became a game that I went back to when I actually finished, because I didn't care enough about the characters to have any sort of emotional energy expenditure based on whatever's happening to them. So it was like, okay, I can enjoy this game. It's kind of cool to run around in here a little bit. I like the fight system, and, just run a few quests, play for a little bit, and then turn off for the night. Because I think that if it had required more of me emotionally, I don't think I would have finished it, probably. So it was both a negative and a positive, because I did finish it. Now, with Nier Automata, they do a very similar thing in the beginning, where we have the prologue, where we are, we're rolling with a crew of automatas, androids or whatever, that are flying in to do some kind of mission. All of them get got, okay, immediately. I'm like, why are you not dodging? Number one, why are you not dodging these big beams that I'm dodging? You just let yourself get got. Why? Doesn't make sense. But anyway, we eventually run through a factory, and one other character comes to sort of do reconnaissance from the air, and they have light conversation. They don't even allude to them knowing each other at all prior to this mission. It's kind of like introductions. Hey, my name is 9S. I'm here to do, get information from the sky for you, or whatever, about the map, or whatever his job was. And there's only a few little moments of conversation. She is kind of a cold fish a little bit. She's, well, maybe I won't say a cold fish, but she's very not super responsive. She's not super verbose. She's not very warm or, inviting in terms of like, yeah, let's have conversation as I'm running through. And that's fine. If that's the characterization, I have no problem with that. Whatever, that's fine. But then at the end of this prologue, they both kind of sacrifice themselves, and she has this reaction. They're having this moment as though they've been comrades in arms. It's like band of brothers, comrades in arms. We know that we're about to sacrifice ourselves for this, and we have this deep friendship, and we're going to go out together, and it's been great working with you, and thank you, and all of that kind of heartwarming stuff. But it was like, but girl, you barely, like, he barely knows your name. You guys have just been rolling together for like an hour before you fought this big thing, and now you're acting like this guy has been your homie since your basic training or whatever. So I couldn't, it felt forced. It felt not genuine, disingenuous. I don't know if I'm using that word correctly. It didn't feel genuine. It didn't feel like emotion that was earned. Like, if you wanted to have that happen, I would say allude to the fact, without having to show me their history, allude to the fact that perhaps they have worked on other missions before, that they're friends of some kind, and, whatever the case may be. So that when they do this, it's like I can at least have a little trickle, a little sparkle of, oh, okay, caring about what's happening here. But I couldn't participate in that emotion. And also it didn't seem like appropriate emotions for these two characters, at least in how they were relating to each other. To me, I could be wrong. And it seems to be, I would say this, I'm not that long into the game right now in terms of the story. I have very much been enjoying the gameplay, so it is something that I will continue. I find that where I am in the story right now, so the general idea is that humans live on the moon and androids are waging a war on Earth, from a, what is it called, like a space station. But they're waging a war on Earth with alien-built machines. This is where I am right now. I don't know what the truth of that is, but that's the basic setup. And so the premise is androids believe that all machines are evil. Well, where I am right now in the game is that we have encountered a village of neutral, peaceful machines that don't want to fight and that would rather work together with the androids. So the character 9S kind of goes back and forth in how he's interacting with these machines, especially these ones that are friendly. And on the one end, he seems to be, he seems to be sympathetic. And then on the other end, he's like, machines have no hearts and we can't trust you. And it's like, I'm kind of letting it slide because I'm putting it in the box of you're working out your confusion about how you feel based on your programming and what you've been taught about the machines, and then now what you're seeing. And so there's a conflict between these two. So I'm not, giving it too much of a negative rating because of that. We'll see how it continues to develop. But yeah, so I'll see as I play through this game if Nier Automata has the same issue as Nier Replicant, which is not ever really getting to care about these characters and what they're going through. And so not being able to participate in the emotional situations that are happening. But overall, it's a fun game. So now let's transition a little bit to the other petty peeve that I kind of referenced, which is relating to fantasy. Now, a slight little bit of backstory. I was going to do a video on me reacting to book talk and similar, I don't even know what they'd be called, hashtags on TikTok, because I've never delved really into these communities. Like I'm not really super on TikTok. I have a TikTok, but I don't really stay on there. I kind of am, a YouTube / Instagram girly. And so whatever I see of TikToks show up in those places. But I've been sending myself on Instagram various probably TikToks that are amusing. And so I was like, well, let me see what book talk is about. I started kind of looking at some of them and I was like, I don't know if I have the mental fortitude to go through this right now. But one thing that I did send myself on Instagram was this post. Let me actually switch over there. Was this post, and I found it to be interesting, and it connected to a TikTok that I was actually going to show you here today, but due to the aforementioned technical difficulties, I was not able to figure out how to get OBS to play the sound from the TikTok. So I'll just summarize that one of the things that this particular TikTok creator, I'll even show you, is this guy. Okay. The first thing he said that he would no longer tolerate is fantasy that follows a particular naming convention, like A Court of Thorn and Roses, I think is what it's called. I have never read it, and I haven't read it specifically because I keep seeing this title naming convention, and I also I'm not reading any of those. I probably tried to read a few pages of it, but it just didn't capture me years ago whenever it came out. And so I just never continued. And I think it's kind of cheesy to see every new fantasy coming out with that kind of title. It's kind of obvious. So Swans and Dragons over on Instagram did this fun little post, and that follows that naming convention. And so I want to see what my romantasy book title is, and just kind of see if, based on that, we can kind of come up with a little short premise of what this book might be about. So first initial, A, is my first initial. So it's the altar of, I'm a Pisces, smoke. And I'm going to use blue as my favorite color. It has historically been my favorite color. And wind. So an altar of smoke and wind is the name of my fantasy novel. We'll try this back here. So I did ponder just a little bit, but I think that the general setup might be like, obviously in a fantasy world, a fantasy society, it has to be like a teen girl, right? Like 16, 17, 18. We'll put her at 18, which is definitely not an age range that I'm interested in reading about. Please forgive me. I am very far away from the teenage age range, and I can no longer relate or slip into the world of a teen in a fantasy, whatever, young adult romance novel. Okay. I can't do it anymore. So we'll say it's a 17-year-old orphan who was left at the temple, okay, to serve in the temple all of her life. And the expectation is that she is just going to be the one who cleans the ashes of the altar where they do their sacrifices. Okay, this is way more than I thought of. And so for the smoke and wind part, I thought like, okay, and perhaps that, now this goes against my own personal beliefs, but listen, we're in a fantasy world. The god that this particular society serves is a god of, wind. Okay. Something like that. A god of a particular element, or maybe even smoke, maybe fire, not fire. That's too, so we'll say like a god of smoke. So we'll say that this is a community maybe that either lives in a very like misty, snowy type of land, or they live in a desert type of environment that always has like, sandstorms, and the fires from the far off volcano are always so it's like a very smoky type of environment, that the sky is clouded and hazy or whatever. And so their god reflects that, right? And unbeknownst to her, because, they're always like the chosen one, right? Unbeknownst to her, she is the child of perhaps this particular god before he was destroyed, okay? And a human woman, okay? And because their love was forbidden, that's why he was destroyed. And probably the mom too, and this baby, though the product of a union that was not sanctioned, found mercy from some goddess or whatever, maybe even the goddess that the god of smoke was married to or engaged to, okay? Somehow this baby found favor, and the final act of mercy or whatever was, leave the baby at the temple where she can, do the rituals. She'll, participate in the rituals to her unbeknownst to them dead father. And perhaps because their god is dead, their environment, maybe that's why the environment has become so almost unlivable, right? And of course, we're going to have the entry of some love interest, because there's going to have to be a love interest, right? And based on other like TikToks and things that I've seen, it's definitely not going to be the best friend, unfortunately, but because I love a good best friend romance or whatever, but it's never going to be the ride or die best friend who was the only one who stuck up for her, when she was being bullied because she was an orphan that had to live at the temple or whatever. Probably either some kind of royalty, some kind of aristocrat, some kind of very powerful magic user, who perhaps needs her power, and her latent power. And she's going to be the only one who can eventually take the place and the throne of her dead father. But because she is both a child of the humans and this god, she's going to usher in a new era of something, because perhaps we have it that there's, understandably, a huge divide between humans and the gods. And, it could be very similar maybe to like the Greek or the Roman pantheon and how they maybe interacted, and maybe there's some oppression going on or some unfairness. I don't know. Maybe not. But she's destined to take the throne of her father and inherit his powers, because that has been empty. And perhaps there's a villain who has been wanting or trying to get his powers, but they came to her during some kind of ritual on her 18th birthday when she came of age. Okay. And it could even be that this could be an enemies to lovers type of thing. Like the villain the one who's trying to get these powers could eventually become her love. And maybe there's some kind of prophecy where they are going to, both embody the powers of this dead deity, and maybe this is like a full-on god, if not an aristocrat or a royal or a magic user, maybe this is like a demigod also or something like that. And so they go on some kind of quest. They're kind of against each other for a while, or for the first book they're kind of against each other, while she rolls with her band of merry men and women, I don't know, to do some stuff and to find her destiny. And by the end of book one, they're kind of like teasing a possible romance. So that is my synopsis set up for my terrible fantasy novel, The Altar of Smoke and Wind. Thank you very much. That's going to be the end of this video. Now, this person did do a second post to do the sequel, the title of the sequel. So maybe I'll come back for that another time. But I feel like I've talked enough for today. How long have I been recording? 30 minutes. That's a solid amount of time. So this is where I'm going to leave you. Have a wonderful weekend. Okay. I hope that you've had a great week so far. I hope that you're able to go into the weekend with joy in your heart, peace in your spirit, a clear mind with goals that you can achieve. And I'm going to stop talking here. I will see you next week. Let me know what you think about that, that stupid story idea. And let me know what yours would be. Like, do your title and what your synopsis would be. I'm interested to find out. So, all right, girls and guys. Okay, talk to you later. Listen, have a great one. See you next week.